My fellow Portlanders, since the dawn of time, water has been the lifeblood of our civilization. It has nurtured us, carried our dreams, and facilitated the exchange of ideas and commodities across continents. Consider the confluence of the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, the cradle of civilization, where our ancestors embarked on the remarkable journey, setting the stage for millennia of human progress. From the ancient waterways of the Middle East to the industrial arteries of the United States, water has been a catalyst for innovation and growth. Detroit, Michigan began as a fur trading outpost, which led to innovations in boat building, which led to tinkering on internal combustion engines, which gave rise to the American automobile industry. Similarly, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania sits at the nexus of three rivers, giving rise not only to the steel industry, but to a hub of education, culture, and commerce. The city, once known as the gateway to the West, served as a boat-building hub and a debarkation point for pioneers. And today it carries that legacy forward, sending many scientists and engineers out west. And then there's New York City, a metropolis famed for its skyline. It too owes much of its economic dynamism to the Hudson River and the Erie Canal that flows into it. This bustling trade network facilitated the exchange of commerce and innovation from the Midwest all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. And it too shares a shipbuilding history that has transformed it from one industrial era to the next. And then there's New Orleans, Louisiana, where the mighty Mississippi meets the Gulf of Mexico. Here, the river's pulse beats to the rhythm of jazz. Its flow stirs the pot of Creole cuisine, and its spirit is captured in the essence of the Sazerac cocktail. New Orleans exemplifies how water can transform a city's identity and culture. And then here we are, in Portland, Oregon. We too sit at the confluence of two great rivers, the mighty Columbia and the robust Willamette. And much like our sister cities, our narrative is deeply interwoven with the stories of these two rivers, which have driven decades of economic, social, and cultural progress. Humans once settled here over 11,000 years ago, and today we stand on the lands of several Chinookan-speaking tribes, including the Clackamas, the Multnomah, the Cathlamet, and the Tualatin. And water literally powered our city from its earliest days. In 1899, PGE installed this 14-mile transmission line from Oregon City all the way to downtown Portland, the first of its kind. And in the 1940s, Kaiser's shipyards in the Pacific Northwest built nearly 752 Liberty and Victory ships using a diverse workforce that included tens of thousands of Native and African Americans. And in addition to having an innovative workforce, he developed innovative social programs, workforce programs, including healthcare and housing for the nearly 100,000 workers that worked in this region, many of which who stayed long after the war. And those workers needed a way to get to work. And so in the 1940s, designs were made for a highway, a 4-lane expressway that would move people through Portland along the west side of the Willamette River. Now, it's important that we acknowledge that all of our stories about water are not just about prosperity and progress. And they bear the scars of the conflicts and struggles that we have faced and have committed on others, from displaced tribes to the Vanport floods. If we look at the cities that we've contemplated today, there's a thread that I can weave across all of them, and that is that the maritime industry has driven economic progress, and not just in that moment, but for decades to follow. And here we are today, just a mere blocks from those historic rivers. And yet, how often do we truly notice them? Our city has seen its vibrant waterfront life ebb away, obscured by highways and seawalls and industrial areas, marred by ignorance and neglect. And this is particularly painful for me. I grew up in South Florida, surrounded by water. It was everywhere around us. Sometimes it came up below us. Topic for a different panel today. But that water transformed that region. I saw it personally, economically, and culturally. And as a CEO of Photon Marine building electric motors, I am passionate about seeing our waterways transformed into drivers of a new economy. And so it pains me when I see vessels like these along the Willamette River, spilling their trash, draining their oil and fuel into our rivers. And I believe that they are emblematic of a greater issue that our region faces, a disconnect between our urban life and our natural waterways. And when I travel to other cities and I see how they have revitalized their waterfronts, how they found a way to blend nature and commerce in a way that aligns with their culture, their values, and their industries, I'm both inspired and dismayed. I often find myself on the way back home on the airplane wondering, why can't we do that? Miami, Florida, gateway to the Caribbean, blends its Latin culture with its Art Deco history. All along its waterways, you see boats and yachts and cruise ships. Citizens and tourists alike take water taxis to the restaurants, and cafes, and museums. Why can't we? Copenhagen, Denmark, where in the 1960s a group of citizens fought to preserve an industrial parcel of land and turn it into a waterfront park. Over the next 40 years, the city, its port, and its citizens not only cleaned up that harbor, but they transformed it into the leading example of a waterfront reclamation from industrial to recreational use. Why can't we? Oslo, Norway, whose waterfront revitalization began in the 1970s with a group of architects and a historical society intent on battling deindustrialization, a declining economy, and an exodus of its citizens from its city center to the suburbs. Today, people bask along the water of a former shipyard site enjoying the scenery. Why can't we? And then further to the north, just slightly north, Vancouver, Washington, has reimagined its waterfront and developed it into a regional gem, creating, by some estimates, nearly $1.5 billion of additional economic value. Why can't we? And the answer isn't that we can't. It's that we choose not to. Because every example that I've offered today is conceivable, is doable here in Portland. But any time that we talk about waterfront development, it is met with a wall of bureaucracy and institutional malaise. We choose not to. Our region lacks a cohesive strategy for how we make common sense decisions about our waterfront. And so therefore, it's easier to say no than to find a pathway forward. We could have had this. A waterfront baseball stadium. We could have had water taxis bringing people to that waterfront baseball stadium and to the adjacent cafes and restaurants and museums. But we chose not to. We could develop almost any industrial parcel in this city and turn it into an access point for our citizens or for our modern industries. But we choose not to. It's too difficult to get the permits, to figure out where the salmon are going to go, to align public and private interests. It's too ambitious. We don't like that word, ambition. We conflate ambition with being an asshole. But here's the thing. It's possible to be ambitious without being an asshole. It is possible to dream big in a way that aligns with our values and is inclusive. We can be ambitious without being assholes. Let's strive for that kind of ambition. And look, I get it. We have been through a lot, from a pandemic to a homeless epidemic to an opioid crisis to macroeconomic inflationary issues. And I empathize. I deeply empathize with every public servant in this room who has had to balance the very visible issues that our city faces with any sort of broader policy objective. But here's the thing. We have to be able to walk and chew gum at the same time. And I'm not asking Portland to change. We hate that word more than ambition. I'm asking Portland to be Portland again. Because we went from a place where the dream of the 90s was alive to a place where the dream of New York City in the 90s is alive. And I stand before you today not to dwell on past and present shortcomings, but to imagine a future where Portland once again reclaims its identity as a city intertwined with the water. Imagine if highways no longer severed our connection to the river. If diverse communities could access and enjoy the water, a place where our economy and our ecology can thrive in harmony. A city on the water. We can transform our waterfronts into vibrant spaces that foster innovation, celebrate our heritage, and lead in environmental stewardship. This vision is attainable. But in order to get there, we need a unifying project. Something that will bring us all together to do something that Portlanders love to do. Complain. We need a big dig. Hear me out. Boston had a big dig. People complained about it for decades. They unified in their complaining of the big dig, but they don't complain about it anymore. Seattle had its big dig. People complained about the noise and the construction and everything else. They unified them, but they don't complain about it anymore. Imagine, if you will, a master plan for our waterfront, one that starts with the waterfront and expands outward, drawing inspiration from cities like Oslo and Copenhagen, even Vancouver and Miami, from which we can learn a thing or two. We can create a vision that balances urbanity with nature. We've done this before. Remember that freeway that we built in the 1940s? Well, in the 1960s, the city wanted to expand it, add some more lanes, move more people through downtown. And instead, citizens revolted. They said, absolutely not. And not only did we not expand it, we knocked it down and turned it into a waterfront park, Tom McCall Waterfront Park. And it's an important park because it was the first time in our nation's history where we reclaimed a highway and did not replace it. This was the original big dig. What if we were to do it again? What if we buried I-5? Serious. Get rid of it. Thank you. And in its stead, reconnect our citizens to the waterfront, creating spaces where commerce, nature, industry, and community could thrive. Think of the food and beverage that we could enjoy along this waterfront. Let's envision a river where the hum of electric boats glide all along the Willamette River, where charging stations, not fuel stations, are dotted all across the Willamette and the Columbia, reaching out to Astoria like lifelines. With just 24 charging stations, we could have the world's first electric river. We could do this. Let's build an EV innovation hub where the bright minds of today can converge to design and develop the electric vehicles of tomorrow. Here, startups and corporate innovation teams can spark progress and design vehicles that vary from the whisper soft engines of electric motors to the quiet sounds of snowmobiles, tractors, and even electric leaf blowers. This could be the heart that pumps blood into our economy. We could have a waterfront campus on Swan Island. We could have the region's first all-electric marina. We could bring boat builders from all around the world to design and develop the most novel and energy-efficient designs. And we could optimize the supply chain for a plethora of EV startups who are all using the same components: motors, batteries, cables. That's it. That's the ingredient list for EV. And we could build workforce training programs to support the next generation of high-paying jobs. We could do this. We have an opportunity to once again be pioneers in urban revitalization, to bring together access to the water for people and industry alike. We could do this. And if we can't do any of this, could we at least get a floating food cart? Yes? We could do this, right? Okay, I get it. You're all thinking, nice idea. What's it going to cost us? Well, the good news is that there is a plethora of federal funding that's available right now. And not for long, because half of these are due in like a month. But the EPA has announced $2.8 billion for port electrification. And you don't just have to be a port to get after it. You can be a business that uses port infrastructure. The IRA has $20 billion to catalyze private capital as part of its greenhouse gas reduction fund. The U.S. Department of Transportation has $500 million to work with the $2.8 billion of EPA money. And the National Science Foundation has announced $1.6 billion to award to 10 groups to develop innovation hubs. I want our EV hub on that list. But here's the thing. Funding alone is not going to solve our problems. We need a blend of public and private partnership working together under a unique and aligned vision and execute it seamlessly. And that vision needs to be an ambitious vision, and it needs to be a growth-minded vision. And there's only one word that Portlanders hate more than ambition, and that's growth. We don't like it. We ignore it. We pretend it's not happening. And then guess what? We grow anyways, and things break. And when they break, we institute little small fixes. It's not enough. Our city's down on its luck. And right now, a small bet isn't going to get us down and out from where we are. We need to make big bets. Big dig bets. Big ambitious bets that align with our values of who we are as a city. The moment is now. Because come November, we have no idea what are the questions that we might be asking ourselves. But I have an ask of you right now. To the public servants in this room, when presented with a big ambitious vision for where our city could go, don't just say no because we've tried it before and failed. Ask yourself, how might we? To the politicians in this room, when presented with that same vision, don't just say no because its impact won't be felt till after your term of office or life. Ask yourself, how might we? To the business leaders in the room who love taking pot shots at government for moving too slow, let's find ways to mobilize capital faster than government can. Ask yourself, how might we? And to everyone else in this room, to the citizens of Portland, I say this. Every single example that I've offered to you today of an urban waterway being revitalized began with a group of citizens passionately saying, enough, the water belongs to us, and taking action. Ask yourselves, how might we? Nearly a century ago, Henry Kaiser stood upon the same waterways that we are near, and he reimagined the shipbuilding industry. He leveraged our rivers to realize his ambitions. And today, we have an opportunity to do the same. Let's not look back 5, 10, 15 years from now and look at all the other cities who've figured out how to revitalize their waterfronts and wonder, maybe mutter to ourselves, why can't we? Instead, let's craft a vision forward that begins with a very simple question. How might we? I envision a future where Portland is not just a city on a hill, but a city on the water. A city where rivers are the heart of our community, pulsing with life and activity. Let's embark on this journey together with hope, courage, and dare I say, ambition. Let's forge a new legacy for Portland, one that flows like the rivers themselves, ever forward, ever vibrant, and ever life-sustaining. A city on the water. Thank you.